We'll call the caucus to order at 6:30. And Councilwoman Jones, you do have the invitation tonight?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, thank you. And we do have minutes tonight, 3 sets of minutes from January, February, and February. We're pretty much caught up at this point. No, still no communications, no. Okay. The first ordinance that we have is the rental registration license, and I do believe that we have amended that, and you should have a copy of all the amended. You all have a copy of that? Any comments, any questions on that? That's the third reading, so we do have to pass that tonight.
Mr. Jackson had asked about whether the law department had a chance to look at it. And if
I
there was any
emailed everyone the
difficulties.
Blair's letter. I emailed it to everybody.
I don't remember that letter.
Last meeting, wasn't it?
For his notice that it's legal.
Right, right.
So he sent out something by email? I don't remember that. Okay. But it has full-blown approval? We're good? Okay.
The only thing he said he was going to do is to give them some opportunity for a possible court appeal, and that's the only thing he was looking at. So beyond that, I think everything was legal.
Yeah, I had contacted the law department last week and I asked if there was anything, because I was absent from the last meeting, and I wanted to contact Blair, and the law department told me that it's fine as it is, so.
Okay.
And then he sent out that memo.
Okay.
So, and also I just want to say, if there's anyone who's interested in co-sponsoring, I'd appreciate if anyone wanted to co-sponsor this morning.
I would. Alex?
Put me down as
Tony? Myself. Anyone else? 2015-07 is the zoning map, and I do believe you got the amendments to that as well. It was just some kind of an inadvertent, the back parking lot was just supposed to be included and it wasn't. So we just have to amend that and make us, and I'm sure even though this is a second reading, we can move this along, or we can suspend, or if you'd like to continue on for the third reading. What is your pleasure, Council?
Well, we're just giving a third reading. Is there any emergency in hand that we need to pass earlier?
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing you.
Is there anything that pushes us to do it earlier?
Actually, yes.
Okay. What is
We
that?
have 30 days from the public hearing. Okay, so if the 11th we could put it on the 11th, as long as we still have that meeting.
Right. So we could actually do that on the 11th, maybe within 30-day window?
We would have to do it on the 11th, because we do have a deadline.
Right, right.
And an ordinance, it's to appropriations for current expenses, 2015-08. I believe Irene will be here for an explanation, but we are going to have to hold this because she has not completed all of the work that needed to be done. She is, unfortunately, we had a total computer glitch.
I don't know, something happened to the computer, but then it came back on.
Okay. You can come in if you... Yeah. So she wasn't able to print and is not ready, so we'll have to hold this until a special meeting on the 11th.
So we'll put on first reading on the 11th then? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So they said, we'll hold this.
Okay.
So it's not a first reading tonight?
We can't, there's nothing in front of us.
Oh, okay, I just want clarity, that's all.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
2015-09, which is talking about reducing salaries of mayor, council, and council president and members of council. Thank you.
So, this legislation was, it is presented by myself. The general impetus is as it states on there, because of the financial situation of the city, that we need to be exploring all possibilities for controlling our costs.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And this is just one way of doing that. It proposes reducing council's salary, all members of council, to $9,000, and the mayor's salary, beginning in 2016, to $75,000 total. There being no stipend for the position of safety director. Through this, we would realize a total savings of $37,000. As you can see on the sheet that I handed out, that this would put us toward the lower end of compensation for elected officials, but it wouldn't put us out the bottom by any means. If you look at the mayor, you can see that the average is roughly $83,000 of cities that are about the same size close by us. So we would be on the lower end, but you can see that Fairview Park is at 77. East Cleveland is a unique circumstance, but they're at 40. But you can see Parma Heights is at $66,000. So we wouldn't even be at the lowest end of the compensation spectrum. And if you look at council members, if we were to drop it to 9,000, there would still be a handful of communities that would be below us. We still wouldn't be at the bottom. So I believe that these are reasonable reductions that could realize a significant savings. $37,000 is not anything to wag a finger at. At the bottom, you'll see the council breakdown. With it being a part-time position, I think it's a little bit difficult to wrap your mind around how much compensation that actually is. But down at the bottom it says council breakdown. In 2014, we had roughly 44 meetings. And if you were to divide our pay by the number of meetings, that would be $270 some per meeting. We only pay our planning and zoning, I think it's $75 per meeting. So we do have some additional responsibilities, obviously, that come into meetings. So if you look at it by week, at our current rate, it's $231 a week. But if you look at the reduced rate, if we start in 2016 at $9,000, we would still be compensated $173 per week for the work that we do. If we happen to do about 10 hours of work a week, that's $17 an hour, which again is nothing to wag your finger at. So I think that these are reasonable changes that could be made to help us realize the savings that we really need. And one of the ways we could do so in Maple Heights. So I just present it to you and I'd like to hear your comments.
We have, did you want to put this in a committee to review with the finance committee?
Well, the difficulty is timing. This has to be in 120 days prior to the election. And I believe the primary, it'd have to be 128 days prior to the primary. Oh, no, it's November. Okay, great.
You have plenty of time.
So then there's plenty of time, yeah. See, what I was looking at was a deadline of April 8th or somewhere around there. But if it's November is our end date, then we're good. I mean, we've got plenty of time. This is something that could be put in committee. I think it's pretty straightforward. I don't know why it necessarily needs to go to committee.
I agree. I don't think it needs to go to committee. I think if we have the 3 readings and just vote on it, that would work.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yeah, we brought this up once before when we did the pay with the last council people bill, and we looked at it pretty good, and we thought we was fair at that time. Here you got a total of $37,000 savings. I know we're in a bad situation right now, but it doesn't matter. A hill being's $37,000 for our deficit. We're all working time and a half. You say 10 hours a week. Well, I disagree with that myself, my personal feelings. I put in more than 10 hours a week. I think we're being more than fair to our council people, to our residents, which we represent. I know each one of us are available 24/7. And I haven't heard no complaints, one complaint about the job we do. Everybody should be compensated. And these hard times mean it's harder work. That I personally am doing, and I know the others are doing the same. And we've been through it. We cut the council pay twice. And according to reading what you have here, and I thank you for this, because it reinforces me too, sticking with what I stuck with back when we cut the merit pay last time, which is into the legislation, which we've debated for quite a while on, and it was passed. To go through this again at this time, I would not vote for this legislation. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes, and
Councilman Brownlee, I put a lot of that, council salary back into the district. So, just letting you know.
go ahead, Richard.
I mean, Mr. Brownlee, what fraction of this $37,000 is of the 2.5 deficit? You're talking about bringing an effort to restore fiscal solvency. What is $37,000 going to do for a $2.5 million deficit that the city has? In addition, looking at what Council Clerk provided us in terms of cuts that the council has made in the past 9 years, the council has had 2 salary reductions. Now, taking into consideration that the council has taken cuts in salary, it doesn't accommodate for a rise in living costs and so forth. And you're projecting these 36 meetings for 2016. How do you know that's subjective? And you just can't put a number, a $9,000 salary on a council members. We're elected officials. We work 365 days a year. I get calls starting from 6 in the morning to 11:30 at night. Whenever my constituent calls me, I answer, or once I get their call, I return their call back. I think that this piece of legislation, in my opinion, is a political stunt. I understand it's an election year. And this is your first piece of legislation since being on council. But I would hope that as council members, with the situation that we're in financially, that we would be more constructive with our usage of our time in trying to bring more constructive, positive legislation that's going to do something more positive on the situation that the city is in, whether it's economic development or tax reform or whatever, not cutting the elected official's salary. It's not a constructive policy that's going to address our city's needs.
And just to add, I think when you're going to evaluate and divide, planning and zoning do make $75 an hour, and we probably should up that. But as I think Richard
Did you say
stated,
hour?
a meeting,
Oh,
a meeting. Sometimes it's 3 hours, but they aren't paid for enough for some of the work that they do as well. But I don't think you can compare a meeting once a month, or sometimes not even that, with the 66 meetings that we have had this year. I think, I don't know how you can take 40 meetings, or what you said, 44, and divide it and get a figure. We had 66 meetings this past year. Okay, let's
Madam Chair.
that's a first.
I have another comment. This city, guys, is a very difficult financial situation. We are going to have to ask for our employees to take a salary cut. I think that's almost unavoidable. Most of our budget is personnel. to think that we're going to catch up the, I don't know, $1.5 or $2 million annual deficit that we keep building for ourselves, we're going to have to cut into that large portion of our budget. And if we aren't willing to take that leap ourselves and go down to making $173 a week, which is no piddly amount of money for the work that we do for our community, if we're not willing to do that, then we are not going to have any options on the table in order to get the city where it needs to be financially. And if we aren't willing to bite the bullet in this way ourselves, I think we're going to have a hard sell for the public at large. Back in January of 2014, I shared very candidly that tax levies are not going to pass until this body proves that it can make the hard choices necessary to balance the budget. And 3 levies later, that's been proven true, I think. And this is the crux of the issue. Until we prove that we are willing to take the hit ourselves, then how can we ask anyone else to take a hit to bring us where we need to be? As you can see from the paper that I set in front of you, there are plenty of council people who are making less, some far less than we are. Are you saying that you're better than they are? I just don't understand that. I don't understand that. If they feel comfortable serving their constituents at that rate, then why can we not feel? I mean, we are in a much more desperate position than Fairview Park or Shaker Heights, yet they're making significantly less money than we are. So why not be willing to take that hit ourselves and to lead by example so that we can set our balance books right?
Well, we have several
Madam Chair.
weeks to go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Councilman Brownlee, would you give back your salary for, what month is this? March through December? Your salary?
What about it?
Would you turn it into the city? Starting it in March.
Why do you ask?
I mean, because you just said that we need to lead by example. That would be a good example.
Well, here's why. Back in the summer, I offered to take a 25% pay cut, which is this represents. It was refused by the city.
It's illegal. It wasn't refused by
I don't
the
know
city.
if that's true.
It is illegal.
You can say that if you want. Show me where it's illegal.
There's nothing illegal about writing a check back to
Show
the
me where
city
it's
like we
illegal.
all do.
We had
There's no,
fundraisers, Bill.
guys, you
contribute
can
to the
attack me all you
fundraisers.
want. The legislation stands on its own. If we aren't willing to lead by example, then who do you think is going to follow us in the difficult decisions that lie ahead? And please, don't kid yourselves. There's no magic money coming from somewhere. We tried that with the traffic cameras. There's no silver bullet in our future. There's only a bullet that we've got to bite in order to take the pain that's necessary to balance our finances. And it's going to require cuts. And if we aren't willing to take the first shot, then we are not going to be successful in negotiating with either employees or residents in order for them to take a shot. Okay? You can attack me all you want and question me all you want.
It's not an attack.
The facts of the matter are, as it stands right now, we are in the high middle range of compensation. We could lower ourselves if we were humble enough to do so and go down to the lower range of compensation, and we could save our city 2% of the shortfall, roughly, that we have to make up annually. We could begin there. All right? It sits right out here in front of us. We can do that, and it won't take really any effort on our part.
Madam Chair, can I ask a question? And I
Sure,
would
go
just
ahead.
like to, say almost the same thing that Edwina said, and it's just basically just a question. How much have you given back from your salary to the community? Because I could tell you, we all have, and I have canceled checks to prove that I do not make what's in here. In my time, in my gas, and in the contributions I've given just to the senior center. You can't even volunteer your time, Bill. And you're asking
See,
us.
here we go with ad hominem attacks again. You're gonna attack me
Oh,
when you
because
really can't
you're
attack
on
the
law.
idea. Take the idea for what it is.
Give
We could help save our city $37,000 very easily and begin the work of balancing the budget.
You're very good at not answering questions.
I'm refusing to answer the question, your attack on my personality.
Okay, all right, let's stop the attacks. This is on a first reading. We'll go to the second reading and third
Madam
reading and
President,
vote,
I have something.
and then you'll get an answer. No, let's move on. We've got 10 minutes to go through a couple of things that are a little more, I think, of interest. I'm sorry, Alex, can you save that?
Yeah, I'll say,
Okay, thank you. Okay, the 2015-10 is the resolution for March designating it, this March 15th as multiple MS, Education and Awareness Month in the city. And I know this was done by Councilman Jackson.
Can I be added on to that?
Absolutely,
Me too.
absolutely, myself also. And we'll need a motion to suspend the rules, hopefully.
So it's everybody,
Yes.
is there anybody who does not want to be on this? Do you want to co-sponsor?
No, thank you.
Okay, that's all I want.
Okay. And if you turn to your expenditures over $1,000, if you have any questions on that. Okay. And I do believe, Irene, would you have a couple of comments for us? Would you want to speak to the budget at all?
Yes, good evening to everyone.
Maybe.
My back is not- Would like to at least, I think someone has already mentioned that the computers went down, so we had no recourse. We finally got some technical assistance to bring it back up about 5:15. So the budget is almost finished. But the last week or so, Ms. Vopat and I have been working on the senior center just to try to see how that would fare and fly. And I think as a result, we came up with the notion and numbers that the senior center could stay open about 8 months on their own funding. What we had come up with is that it will cost about $25,000 a month to run the center, which is about $300,000 a year. The senior has on its own about $167,000, and this body in the temporary budget had agreed to fund, or at least to subsidize and match the senior. Those expenses for the year I would project to be about $83,000 or so. So taking a third of that and adding it to the 167 bring us to about $200,000. And so the 200,000 divided by 25,000 would give 8 months of operations here at the center. And that's basically without the city subsidizing or matching. We also talked with the funding bodies, and the match actually has been, we were matching it to run it at a level that was not required by area agency or DSAS. So actually our match is only required match is about $17,000, which can be an in-kind, rent, utilities, or, volunteers and what have you. So we've worked out a plan, and we'll have to revise and bring before this committee a revised contract to go back to area agency to restate that we will only be supplying the match mostly through the volunteers and through in-kind. So I think that's sort of good news, because the thought was that we may have to close it at the end of March. But with the donations that have come in and the funding from the area agency, DSAS, and local donations, we're able to garner up about $167,000. So 8 months would cost about $200,000. And so using the subsidy from the first 3 months of this year from the city, the 20 plus $30,000, it brings it pretty closer to 200,000. And like I said, we will continue to tweak those numbers as dollars come in, because my understanding there's ongoing fundraisers. But right now, what we do have available will carry us about 8 months.
That's good news.
Mayor,
Go
there are
ahead.
two other grants that have not been included in that, and one is the Cleveland Clinic Initiative, the community initiative. Last year we got 5,000, the year before we got 8,000, I'm requesting 10,000 this year. And then the First Catholic Ladies Slovak Association has a convention this year, they give out $1 million, I'm asking 20,000, I'm asking 20,000 from them. And that won't, the one will be on a pretty much an immediate answer. The other one, I think the convention is in August or something like that. So those two are not figured in Irene's. And then there was a possibility of us, a lease agreement on our radio system, and at first it looked really good. So what we were using for transportation with the senior transportation connection, what we paid them monthly, that was going to be in exchange for the use of our radio band. They came back and said they didn't think that would work, and I didn't even have time to tell Irene and the mayor. They came back now and said they're looking back at us. So if that would be the case, we would be talking about another $5,000 to $8,000. So we have other things going on. We have declined the Benjamin Rose proposition. It was not. It wasn't a good proposition. I can go through the details if you'd like to know, but whenever you'd like to know, but it wasn't.
To the chair, to you. I saw Cleveland Foundation gave some money to one of the suburbs for senior transportation. Would it be helpful to find a contact there, or do you have one to see if we could obtain any money? That
I
would help?
have a contact, but the Cleveland, all of the foundations, like the Cleveland Foundation and the McGregor Foundation and the St. Luke's Foundation, do not fund operating costs. So if you saw that going to the it probably went to the senior transportation connection. And that's because they're the coordinating agency of all of us, and it was for somebody. If it was a community, then it had to be startup money or something. It's generally, it is not, it's not operating funds. Usually, but if you find it, if you remember who it is, I'll be happy to look into it.
Anything else? Alex?
I'd just like to thank you, Linda and Irene, on behalf of the residents and council. And this is hard work and coming up with these numbers and finding a way to finance for our seniors. That's a very good thing. I thank you, and the residents thank you.
And the seniors.
Seniors.
Go ahead.
Regarding the grant monies that are received, you said it was $160-some thousand for the senior center.
No, that's not what I said.
How many thousand was
About
it?
32,000.
That's from the area
No.
agency.
Yeah, from the area agency.
Okay, so whatever the number is, that it will fund us for 8 months, so we'll get to July, through July then? Is that right?
Yeah, we'll go through August.
We'll go through August? Now, will that money be prorated if we end services prior to the end of the year?
Will what money be prorated?
The grant monies that the center receives. If we don't provide services for the entire year, will those monies be prorated? So let's say you only did 8 months of service, so we're only going to give you 2/3 of the money.
We bill we have to provide the service to get the payment. So every month, there is a billing that leaves this building with how many people eat lunch here, how many home delivered meals, how many one-way trips we do. We're funded from the county for the congregate meals and transportation. We're funded from the area agency for congregate meals, home delivered, and transportation. We have to send them what we did, and then they pay us.
Okay.
So we don't get paid in advance. The whole lump of money doesn't come.
Okay.
We'd like that,
Yeah.
But they don't do that. We have to provide the service and then get paid for what we did. For instance, the billing for January for DSAS is $9,000. That hasn't even come in yet. The billing is behind. So that money is also part of what Irene is figuring into this, because it's going to come and we're going to get paid now, so we'll be able to use it now.
Any other questions for Irene or Linda? Good. I do have one announcement for you. I don't know whether you recall, but we had talked previously about doing a program for domestic violence. No, that doesn't sound right, does it? To prevent domestic violence. And we're going to have Karen Gordon from the agency, plus a couple of other folks, plus our police chief, who will be talking about how they handle these. If you go, when you scroll through the police reports and you see that there's grandmas and grandpas and dates and husbands and wives and children, there's so much domestic violence. So I thought it would be a good program to present for as an education aspect of our forums. But we are doing that in April, but in the meantime, the agency has moved to Payne Avenue, and they are inviting folks to come in and take a look at it, and their kinds of opportunities and the kinds of programs that they can provide. And that's Friday, March 13th and Wednesday, April 22nd, and they have special times. And I'll ask Kathy to put it on email, just in case anyone is interested in going down and reviewing that. And then other than that, we have 2 meetings next week. One is the Committee of the Whole meeting, which will be at 6 o'clock, and that will be the Q&A for the folks from Columbus who will be coming up from the auditor. And then at 7, we will have our special council meeting. And at that point, the budget will be the main topic. Absolutely the only topic, probably.
And planning and zoning.
And planning and zoning on Monday. We only have one case on Monday, and that's Weaves on Monday, if anybody's interested. Richard, too. Okay, any other announcements or questions? Anything else?
I just have one question for the mayor. I know a couple weeks ago, with our snowplows, they were broken down there, so it was 2 operable out of the 7. So where's the status? I saw there's appropriation for the fixing of one of them. What's the status of the others?
Well, the last snowstorm we had, I believe we had, most of the fleet was running. A couple of the trucks, the plows weren't working, so they were salting only, but we've been able to keep up with the fleet. I mean, there was a couple of times we fell behind, but they got it fixed. You gotta remember the fleet is from 2008 and 2009. I don't think the trucks are any, younger than that, so they do take a lot of abuse and wear and tear. But all in all, I think for what we've had this winter, they've done a really, really damn good job keeping our streets open and cleared with 6-8 guys.
Any other? Okay, we're good to go?